Welcome to Season 4, Episode 5 of the Gateway Geeks podcast, Deeply Chaotic Energy. This time, Sarah and Chris provide a primer on musicals and pop culture as the crew discusses the 1992 blockbuster Newsies, starring a young Christian Bale, incidentally. Further topics include Aaron answering for his generation's complete aversion to sincerity, airplanes versus Zeppelins, pink Polo Rambo, and unmarked van abductions by the federal government, and what we all have been doing in quarantine. Now let's join our hosts, Chris, Sarah, Aaron, and Joe. Okay.
Boom.
I consent.
Consented to the use of my image. There is a strong royalty fee associated with the use of my likeness. I just want it to be known. You'll be receiving my bill shortly.
Yeah, good luck trying to monetize Sarah Connor. Fox will end up owning you somehow.
Oh my god. Okay, so,
what if I was just a plant from the Fox Corporation this whole time?
Just to get a hold of our highly lucrative podcast.
Yes.
So, welcome back, everybody, to this is the 5th episode of Season 4 of the Gateway Geeks podcast. This time, I'm Joe. We have with us Aaron.
Yep.
And Sarah and
I'm Chris. Hi.
Yes.
I'm Sarah.
So we need to just like have a script for this next time. Apparently.
Just a consistent order, maybe.
True.
Why start now? Why start now?
Why start now? Well, the problem is that I think everybody's like the order of the images on Zoom in the little gallery thing are different for everyone, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not even like we could say we're going clockwise or something.
I don't even have a gallery. It just cycles through because I'm on my phone.
Oh,
It's
it's got like
to the side. You can get a gallery.
Yeah. Oh, can I?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Cool.
Okay. So this time we're talking about we got some latest your hot takes from dystopia that we have to go through. We're talking about the movie Newsies, which I don't know how I forgot it was a musical, but I did.
What the fuck?
And I haven't seen it since like the last
Joe,
time
that
I
was
saw
the
it
top-selling soundtrack for like 3 years.
the last
Alan
time
Menken wrote the fucking songs.
You guys are giving me like way too much credit for having any knowledge about musicals whatsoever.
What
So,
about
like,
just the 90s, my dude? You were there.
I know.
We only got like 4 movies a year back then.
I'm watching this movie and I'm like, man, they started singing real quick because I realized like as I was looking it up on IMDb, I'm like, oh, it's okay. It was like on Broadway, so that's when I realized it was a musical. We'll get into that later. So
I mean, it was actually on Broadway like years later. Like it was not original. It was originally a film. It was not originally a
The
stage
Broadway
musical.
play is an adaptation of the movie. They went a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. There's a thing with musicals that maybe you all could explain to me. Maybe we could just start it now. You can explain this to me. So like, is there some kind of formula for like how much talking there is as opposed to how much singing there is? Because what threw me off about Newsies was like immediately we're singing, and then like the middle of the movie there's like regular dialogue. And
Okay.
then plus singing.
So a musical that is all singing is known as sung through.
Yeah.
Through. Okay.
Sometimes it's also called an operetta. It's like, yeah,
Yes.
that's a whole thing. Like Rent is like that. The stage version anyway. Les Mis is like that. It's pretty common, especially if you're wanting to do something like more serious, you know, like that's the like prestige version of a musical. That's like the musical that you try to like win an Oscar with, you know, although like not really the Tonys work differently. It's a whole thing. I can't explain like how like Tonys operate. That's a whole other issue.
Oh,
See,
we can start a whole separate podcast on the politics of the Tonys.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be like our spinoff. So like my frame of reference, and maybe Aaron, you have something like this. My frame of reference for musicals is like Les Mis, Cats, Rent. That's it. Those are like the ones I like.
Oh
So-
no!
No.
What? Oh no!
So and
Joe.
not the what the hell is the guy's name? The Wolverine guy. I didn't see that movie. Like, I actually have seen Les Mis, the movie, but
This is like meeting someone who's only ever like McDonald's isn't the right standard. This is like meeting someone who's only ever eaten at Hardee's and it's like food sucks.
I've seen a few musicals. I saw my favorite is Camelot, and I know that's not held in high regard.
It's fun.
I don't think I've actually seen Camelot, but yeah, I don't have a strong. I would probably like Camelot. I've seen other who is that, Lerner and Lowe's. So
here, Mara Wilson put it best a couple of days ago when she was like, "Hey, people who think you're superior for not liking musicals. That's like thinking you're better than me for not crying in public. We know it's embarrassing. Quit rubbing our noses in it."
See, my thing isn't even that I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with musicals. I just have a hard time, like, enjoying them. I'll just say. So it's because I feel very, to me, like going to a concert and going to a play, for example, very different experiences. And to me, like, a concert is I feel much more put upon at a concert to like consume what's going on. Like, it doesn't go directly into my brain as, talking would. It kind of feels like someone is yelling at me a little bit, like very low grade. So like, with musicals, that's how I feel. I feel like I'm being yelled at the whole time.
So the thing about musicals is that they are simultaneously high concept, but not designed to be processed cognitively.
Yes.
There's like, is there a term for emotionally high concept?
Sure. Yeah.
That's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's designed to evoke emotion without it means other than narration.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, you put it in the show notes that you think Santa Fe makes Christian Bale look like he's losing his mind.
It does.
That is actually a very pretty standard I Want song.
Yeah.
So it's the song where one of your main. Here's the thing about Santa Fe. One of the reasons why this is actually just kind of genius. It comes shockingly late in the movie.
Really does. Yeah.
Often, I Want songs are the first song of the musical. And it's where your main character or one of your main characters basically just tells you what they want.
Yep.
In a way that would actually look more insane if they were just sitting there saying, "Oh, man, I'm putting all my hopes and dreams on like Santa Fe being the same as being loved."
Yep.
And also, it's important to remember that his character is 17. Like,
yeah. I finally caught that on this watching. I was like, oh, yeah, that's a baby. That's a whole ass child.
And Christian Bale is singing it while trying to fake a Brooklyn accent. So if you watch
so bad.
No, he's doing a really good job. He's got his jaw all the way forward.
Yeah. Honestly, Christian Bale singing is not that bad.
No.
Like, he got raked over the fucking coals for the singing in this musical. Honestly,
the accents are what's bad.
Yeah, the accent's not good, but like...
Okay, but no, listen to the Newsies soundtrack from the Broadway production. It's worse.
Yeah.
Like, everyone is a much more talented performer.
Yeah.
But the accents are worse. And like, somehow it raises the standard that you're expecting. And the roughness works with Newsies stood out when it was made because it was coming after the death of the musical, right? Was it
1969 was the death of the musical with Hello Dolly, but it was a long, slow decline to that point. It's really not Barbara Streisand's fault that the musical died.
Hello Dolly's actually a fully watchable movie. They just spent way too much money making it.
Yeah.
Tell me a little more about the death of the musical thing. Like, explain to me what that is.
Oh, well, they're like most of the first like 50 or so years of like sound movies, like musicals were the biggest game in town. Like musicals were the big like blockbuster money maker, like movies, like the big crowd pleasers that everybody went to see. Like basically since like talkies became a thing, like Hollywood started immediately producing musicals, and there was like the big like spectacle, like Bubsy Berkeley productions of the 30s, and then into the 40s and 50s you get like the big like classic MGM musicals, like Singin' in the Rain, like all the Gene Kelly stuff, all the Judy Garland stuff, and then in the 60s, like as new Hollywood was starting to emerge and like the studio system was starting to die, they started spending way too much money producing these musicals, and audiences' tastes were changing a lot. So like it was a very like complicated series of events. Lindsay Ellis actually made a really good video about this on YouTube about the death of the movie musical, but like yeah, there were a bunch of like really big bombs. There was a lot of like complicated stuff involving like road shows. Like it's a whole thing. But like the long and short of it is, in like 1969, like it went from getting like a bunch of musicals every year to like maybe one or two. And like generally they were very small scale, like Cabaret in 1977, which is basically shot like an independent film, you know, stuff like that, like more teen oriented stuff, like especially in the 80s with like Fame and that sort of thing.
Yentl.
Yes, Yentl. And like that's like Yentl happened because Barbara Streisand produced it. Like that was like nothing about like trends or like what studios wanted. Barbara Streisand was like, I am making Yentl, and everybody was like, okay. Well, you're very powerful, Barbara Streisand.
With the rise of New Hollywood, realism became a huge thing.
That was also a big factor, yeah.
Everybody wanted grounded. Everybody wanted gritty. Everybody wanted, you know.
Yeah, which is why, like, if you've ever seen Cabaret, like, it is very much the way that it is. Like, it's got much more in common with like the Scorsese movies of the time than like anything that MGM was doing in the 50s. Is
this the moment we can introduce the concept of diegesis?
Yes.
So, okay, let me explain this. Like, let's take two musicals from the 90s that I know both of you have seen already, and explain the difference between diegetic and non-diegetic. So you have Sister Act, which was the biggest hit musical of the 90s. All of that is diegetic. The music is diegetic. The performances are happening within the world, within the logic of the world, within the logic of our world more specifically.
Like every song that's being performed is like actually being performed like within the context of the story that's happening. That's what diegetic music means.
Gotcha.
Same with Cabaret, where it's literally the setting of a cabaret.
So the non-diogenic is like what I was talking about, where Christian Bale looks crazy.
Yes.
Where it's like step off to this, like the light goes down on the backdrop, you step out, the spotlight's on you, and you're singing. And then okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is emotionally honest, but it's not honest to the reality of the setting.
Okay.
So it's not to say it's not happening, but it's a representation of what's happening rather than what is exactly happening. Now, we can further clusterfuck this whole thing with movies that do both within the same production. I'm looking at you, Moulin Rouge.
That's what I was going to ask about. I was trying to think of examples of other musicals, because there's like There's that, and then the other thing that comes to mind is like where 90s TV shows, well, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer is the one I can think of right now, where it's like we're gonna have a musical episode, and then we're gonna go back to acting like that didn't happen.
Yep.
In all subsequent episodes.
So where does concert movies fall into this? Well, I don't mean filming a concert. I mean things like Purple Rain or the Blues Brothers or Top Secret.
I think it depends on the movie. Because I don't know, like Purple Rain has like a clear story. Purple Rain is honestly like a very traditional musical.
Yes.
Like structurally, like it's just like got Prince songs in it. Like, but like structurally, it's very traditional. Blues Brothers, that's all diegetic. I think. Is it?
There's like the diner scene with Aretha Franklin. There's the music shop scene. It flips back and forth between, because again you have like the Aretha Franklin scene where like all of a sudden the patrons of the diner become backup singers, and again it's telling an emotionally honest portrayal of what's going on. And basically, also Frank Oz was also the first one to be like, hey, what's fun here?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, God bless Frank Oz.
And then you have shows like, this academic study of diegesis versus non-diegesis is new. Film schools have only existed for 40 years at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
So now you have people sort of in their head about it in good and bad ways. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, where they literally are using musicals as a metaphor for mental illness.
Yep.
Like she gets well and all of a sudden shit's less melodic. But the so like you go through the 70s, the 80s, into the 90s, everything's like realism. Out of nowhere comes Newsies, which is very traditional.
Yes.
It is such an MGM throwback.
Yeah, it's a classic MGM style movie. Yeah.
But they could afford to go outside.
Yeah.
Which was a thing that MGM avoided, partially because cameras sucked. Like they hadn't even polarized lenses yet.
It was a technological issue to film outside at that point. Yeah.
Like you could do it, but it looked like hot shit. Like think of any episode you've ever seen of Bonanza when they actually went outside and everything's washed out and weird looking.
How many episodes of Bonanza do you think the average person has seen, Chris?
There's 400 of them. Statistically, everyone's seen 2.
I've never seen an episode of Bonanza.
That is horse shit. You just don't know.
I haven't. What kind of life do you think I'm leading where I've seen multiple episodes of Bonanza?
Okay, but even think about Little House on the Prairie in the 80s and how you could really
That was the 70s.
Was it 70s?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was 70s through the late 80s.
I think it went into the early 80s a little bit, but it was mostly the 70s.
That show was on forever.
Because Sarah, Chris and I didn't have cable until we were like teenagers, and so we watched shitty 70s.
I didn't either. I didn't have cable until I was like 10. I watched so much PBS as a child. Don't come at me.
So much terrible Channel 11, like, what decade
fuck yeah. Oh, so many Channel 11 afternoon movies.
Yeah.
Oh.
Man, I lived on that shit.
This is just a little sidebar. You were saying Diogenic, and I was like, where have I heard that? Where have I heard that before? Oh, Diogenes, the crazy hermit who lived in a pot. He was So for listeners who don't know, Diogenes was a cynic, and I don't remember exact. It was I think it was like classical Greece, so it would have been like 400 BC. Mm-hmm. And he's just like this dude who lived in a pot and hated everyone, and people would come and like have arguments with him, and that was his thing. So I don't know how that like goes into.
I'm sure it's there in the etymology. I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, he was a philosopher, so maybe it's like a thing that he said that they're.
Yeah, I don't actually know much about Diogenes's philosophy, but probably.
And like diegesis usually gets applied to music, but it can also just be anything that happens within the grounded logic.
Yeah, like there's a difference between like a song appearing like in the soundtrack of a scene and like the song being something that like the characters can actually hear.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, like if you think like, I'm sure you guys all know this, but like the way that Western theater started off, you're talking about like these Greek dramas where there's like 1, 2, and 3 people standing on a stage. Then you have a chorus. People were wearing masks. Yeah. The chorus is singing. It may have something to do with like the way the chorus interacts with the actors or something. But yeah.
Yeah, and then modern musicals come out of a combination of the Greek theater tradition and Italian opera.
Yes.
Okay.
And then eventually people were like, well, what if we do this in other languages?
Yeah.
Other styles, and people talk every now and then.
Yeah. What if we create a theater experience that's in the native language of the people that we're performing to?
Was this around Vatican II? Because that sounds like very similar.
No, it was turn of the century.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Like,
do you think musicals only happened in 1962?
No, I'm wondering if it's like part of the same train of logic.
Like stage musicals have been a thing since like the late. I'm trying to think the oldest ones I can think of come from the like late 1800s.
Yeah, before that it was really just like opera and straight plays, and then Americans were like, what if we combined these things? Because I don't know, like the great and terrible thing about Americans is that we're just like, why not about most things? We're just like, why not just do this? We don't think about it. We're just like, fuck it, let's see if this works.
I feel like the musical's really born more in England, and then
musicals are very American.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. The American is just like, let's put ketchup on it. Like
the English people have shame. They're not making musicals. Musicals are the antithesis of feeling embarrassed about anything.
Well, and like, let's, do we have to, so the actual root of musicals might actually be minstrel shows, but maybe let's just skip past that.
That's definitely probably a thing, yep.
Well, there was this is actually a good way to transition on to our next topic, but you know, the same thing is kind of true. I didn't realize this. Same thing is kind of true of like our word for picnic. Like
yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Like decoupling our current culture from like just all the fucked up white person shit in our past. It's gonna be like, it's a long-term project. It's not gonna be easy.
No.
Yep.
I did love, who was it? Someone made a really compelling argument a couple of years ago that minstrel shows were the first legitimate cultural contribution of white Americans to the world. That person is currently on a rowboat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, hopefully. No. Not the point wasn't that it was good. It's the point that literally everything else was either invented by black people or imported.
Yeah.
That was just the first thing that white Americans invented.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
probably.
I was wondering, before we go on to like new stuff, I was wondering how does vaudeville fit into that? Because I know like vaudeville had a lot of like the minstrel show aspect. Yeah,
vaudeville is interesting because it was sort of happening concurrently.
Oh, okay.
Because like I think it's mostly like a like class difference kind of a thing, because like musicals like took a while to become like a truly respectable genre, and like they're still kind of not. They're really only respectable in the sense that like sometimes they make a lot of money.
Right.
Like
Well,
Like
and the people who
they're
are in them
still
really
not.
have to be very talented. Like that's
They're still not like artistically respected because they're viewed as being sort of goofy, but like they were always more artistically respected than like vaudeville, which was like bullshit for poor people, you know?
So like in the hierarchy of film through the 40s and 50s, right? You have prestige drama,
Mm-hmm.
which you will break even at best, but you win awards and everybody feels good about themselves. Sort of below that, you have Americans falling in love in Europe.
Yep.
Which is a slightly cheaper version, but it's a popcorn flick. Just below that, you have musicals that are sometimes about Americans falling in love in Europe.
Yes.
And then just below that, you have vaudeville musical, which is basically, think of the more musical like Marx Brothers movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then below that, you have just vaudeville on film, aka the Three Stooges.
right.
Yeah.
Now,
Or the road movies.
now, yes.
Yeah. Road movies are also musicals. Those would be vaudeville musicals, I think.
Yeah.
Now take this same pyramid and flip it upside down, and that tells you how much money they made.
Yep.
So the Three Stooges financed all of the prestige dramas.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
it's really interesting. Like if you take that like class distinction and you look at it in other cultures, it's like almost always true. Like the same thing. I mean, my go-to is always like Japanese art, but you know, you have like No, which is like super cerebral theater for rich people. That's like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen a No performance, but oh my god, it's fucking boring. Like it's like 7 hours long, and it's
Jesus.
It's like original Greek drama. It's like three people in these masks, and they're not even like, some of them talk, but most of the time they just make like a weird noise. Like if it's a ghost, they can't talk, so they just make like weird. And then under that, you have like kabuki theater, which started off as like something performed by prostitutes, and now it's like much more stylized. And then you have like the weird Butoh thing, which is like way out, and that's like, you know, for Japanese goths or whatever. It's interesting. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's like the stuff at the bottom is what everyone wanted to go see, and the stuff at the top was just like, you know, for like snotty people who no one, you know.
Yes.
Like it's high art, but most people don't care.
Yeah, which is always true. But it's man. Okay, I would love to talk about Newsies forever, but for like 4 seconds.
We haven't even talked about homoeroticism. We can't stop talking about Newsies.
Oh my god, there's so much. It's at least homosocial. Like you have, like anyone who sees that, there's so much. There's so much. Like the first dance number, it's literally like the shot. It has these dudes, like two guys will jump and one will catch the other and they'll spin around and run off screen. But there's like 10 people doing it. It's like a writhing mass of bodies. It's the most homoerotic thing I've ever.
It's just guys being dudes. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's what I did in my teens. Me and my friends would just catch each other, jump and catch each other.
So
the Coen brothers did a magnificent send-up of that
in Hail Caesar?
Was that?
Hail Caesar?
Yeah. I mean, I forget what the name of the song was, but basically,
I can't remember.
But yeah, but they're filming the scene.
No gals.
Yep.
No gals.
Yep, that's the one.
It's beautiful. I want to see that movie.
Yes, I want to watch it. Channing Tatum. I know you want to make that movie. Please make that movie.
Channing Tatum wants to make. Yeah. Anyway, like it's.
Gambit.
He very much wants to be Gambit, but he also really wants to make a Gene Kelly biopic. It's really obvious.
Yeah.
I am here for it.
Yes. Oh my god, I want that so bad. Yeah.
So like what you're looking at is two simultaneous things colliding at the same time. One, Sarah pointed out a long time ago, it's really, really, really hard to portray young friendship and in a way that's emotionally honest and not seriously gay looking.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a complicated issue that involves like society and like how we view male friendships.
Yeah.
But like,
2, these productions require a shit number of classically trained male dancers that are predominantly gay.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
True.
So, like, it seems gay because a lot of them are gay.
Yeah. I mean, also in Newsies specifically, it's a part of the phenomenon of homoeroticism born of misogyny. Because the reason it seems so gay is because there just aren't any women who matter. like they tried a little bit, but they didn't do very good. If you care about your female characters, your movies will be less homoerotic, frankly.
Like, the only women in the movie are of the 4 vaudeville women types. Mom,
Mm-hmm.
sister,
Yep.
rich woman, and person who's probably a madam.
Yep. Wait, who is the rich woman?
You know, I guess there isn't one. I
don't think there's a rich. There's just a rich. There's three
only
women
3
in this whole movie.
That's right. Yeah, never mind.
And honestly, you don't need any of them. Like structurally, like you can easily cut all of them. They are not necessary to the story. It's clearly literally just them going, oh fuck, this is a sausage fest. Let's get these.
Like, fucking, we're out.
The sister is there to cut the tension between.
God, that whole character exists to try and make this movie less gay.
Yeah.
And it's not succeeding.
Well, no, you're right.
The sister is literally inserted in between the 2 male leads as a chaperone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like when they first meet, it's Christian Bale's character like has a meaningful look at her for what, like 30 seconds, and that's supposed to like.
Yep.
That's it.
That's how love works, I guess.
Look, hey, according to Bohemian Rhapsody, that's how you get AIDS. So, hey, clearly.
Just want to let you know, Chris, I'm leaving that in.
So what you're saying is the women in Newsies are basically ZL Ducat of this musical.
I mean,
Chris knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, no, God, oh God.
I don't get that reference.
Deep Space Nine. There's this character Elam Garrick, who is.
Garrick is the gay tailor that I've been telling you about for years.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Flamboyantly gay tailor who has a crush on Dr. Julian of Starfleet. Big time crush. But one of the showrunners was like,
Kardashian guy, just so people know. Okay, I know.
And so the showrunner is like, nope, we can't have gay. We have to turn it down. Elam suddenly has a relationship with the daughter of the main bad guy.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what we call a beard, folks. Go ahead.
Okay. All credit to shit. I just forgot the actor's name. Was it Craig Robinson? Was that?
Yep.
Yeah. All credit to Craig Robinson, who 100% ever refused to play any of those scenes as anything other than awkward.
Yep. Andrew Robinson.
Yeah, Craig Robinson is the guy from The Office.
Oh. Yeah. So, like, she's all like, oh, would you like to come to the sauna with me? And he's like, get away from me, child. But then eventually he's like, I guess I'm lonely. Okay, whatever. Yeah. The fucking doctor won't return my phone calls. It should be. Garrick is one of the greatest characters in the history of science fiction.
Oh yeah,
because he is a spy. Everyone knows he's a spy. He's also a tailor who runs the local tailor shop, and he refuses to acknowledge that he's anything other than a tailor, while flirting relentlessly with the doctor.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you just have these constant lines of like, where did you learn to reprogram a door panel? Oh, it's no different than hemming a pen line. It's like he's introduced as the local spy in the first episode, and I think it's season 3 when he finally acknowledges that he's a spy.
Yeah. Sorry, I did not mean to derail the musical conversation of Deep Space Nine trivia.
Deep Space Nine musical. That would be amazing.
Oh god.
They're making a Lost Boys musical, and what's his name? Andy McDowell is going to be the I'm secretly a vampire character.
Okay.
Look, I'm in my mind. I'm just writing the set list for the Deep Space Nine musical. The opening number is called Promenade. You get an I Want song from Odo called Buckets of Love. These references don't work for anyone else. This is a conversation between Aaron and I now.
I know Odo want to see.
I want to see Quark singing a parody of Master of the House.
Yeah.
You guys fail to understand that there are people who have seen these things like one time. So that's where I'm at. Just one time.
Oh God.
Okay, so before we leave Newsies, I have to say I think it's really interesting how just talking about musicals, we've already dipped into like gender politics, class struggle, LGBT. Like there's a lot to go. This is why I'm trying to be open-minded about musicals. Because like they're not really my thing. Sarah and Chris, clearly they're your thing. But I'm trying to be open-minded here. I mean,
Sarah, what's a good gateway musical for people who don't like music?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I don't know.
I tend to use Cabaret, but I think that just turns people off because I only love Cabaret that much.
I know. I love Cabaret too. Cabaret is one of my favorites. But it's weird because it is good, but it's like very 70s. And I think it's a lot darker than most people are expecting from a musical, and that throws them like.
Can do dark. I've also I always forget that I've also seen Oklahoma, and I fucking hated it.
I also don't like Oklahoma. I'm not a Rodgers and Hammerstein person.
Okay.
Like
so,
I don't know. I find Rodgers and Hammerstein like tonally confused most of the time. Because, like, Rodgers and Hammerstein are, like, much darker than people really give them credit for. But, like, also simultaneously so saccharine. And, like, that just doesn't work for me personally. Like, I like South Pacific. I think South Pacific works really well.
That's fun.
But, like, I don't like The Sound of Music. I don't like Oklahoma.
The Sound of Music's a good like baby musical. That's a good entry level.
I don't think The Sound of Music is a good baby musical because it's like 3 fucking hours long.
I've seen as we're talking about them, I realize that I have seen other musicals. I've seen Sound of Music like the movie. I've never seen.
See, I always think of The Sound of Music as just being like a better version of The King and I.
And I've seen The King and I. Why do I not think of these things as musicals? I don't know why, because they clearly are musicals.
My Fair Lady is fun. My Fair Lady is fun and easy to follow.
Okay.
Singing in the Rain.
I was gonna say I think we got to go like classic Gene Kelly on this. Like it's hard to not be charmed by Gene Kelly.
Well, even Singing in the Rain is a weird example because it's a nostalgia picture.
Yeah.
Because like you look at it now and it's like it was made. What year did it come out?
It came out in 54.
Yeah, 54, but it's a throwback to 40s musicals.
And it's a throwback to 30s musicals because it's about the advent of talkies.
That's right. Yeah.
I love discovering that people just have like an encyclopedic knowledge of something. I mean, I should have just assumed, but you guys, this is like our most educational podcast we've ever done.
Let's just do this every episode. Just let me and Chris talk about musicals for fucking ever.
Oh my God.
Pirates of Penzance is fun. Sarah doesn't like it as much as I do.
I
haven't actually seen Pirates of Penzance
musical because I was poisoned by the pirate movie, which is a god awful sort of remake of that.
Sort of. I don't know. Yeah, like I think Singing in the Rain is
maybe the Bandwagon. Because I don't know. I feel like the Bandwagon is a little more accessible than Singing in the Rain because I feel like it references fewer like older things.
Okay.
Because like my introduction to musicals was actually the kind of thing that usually turns people off, which were these like these jukebox shows where they would just throw together pre-exist like singing like White Christmas is a classic example of like.
I love White Christmas so much. I can't recommend it to you though.
No, one of my favorite movies. It's incomprehensible to watch because it is literally just a shitload of songs that were not written for this.
Yeah. No, there's a whole hour-long video on YouTube of me and Chris talking about why we love White Christmas so much. I'm drunk. like, it's a mess, but like, oh yeah, White Christmas is like genuinely one of my favorite movies, but like I can't recommend that to you as like an entryway for musicals because it's
there's the Road 2 movies. Those are a fun way in sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Road to Marrakesh, Road to there's literally a whole series of movies that start with the words Road to, and they had their theme song that they could just mush anything into. Off on the road to boom. Yeah, no, it's
whatever.
And sadly, I think most Americans that are familiar with that series now know it because one of the biggest fans of that series is Seth MacFarlane, who made a bunch of Road to Family Guy episodes. God damn it. I kind of hate the fact that Seth MacFarlane is as talented as he is and then refuses to use any of it in a way that's oh my God. Aaron, my apologies. This is a Gen X rant.
Good.
Why is your entire generation poisoned against sincerity?
That is a fair question. Honestly,
like the greatest.
Sorry for making you speak for an entire generation of people, but like that is a fair question.
I've got nothing.
Gen X interrogation. Yeah, it's good.
Like Seth MacFarlane and South Park guy.
We've had
Trey Parker and Matt Stone, yeah.
Right. It's like the South Park guys.
I'm not throwing Matt Stone in here. Trey Parker and Seth MacFarlane are genuinely talented creators who cannot allow themselves to genuinely feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's for some reason people have just I think a lot of it has to do with like lumping sincerity with camp. It's why people look back at, say, the Adam West Batman thing with such disdain because it's campy and it's silly. Yes, but it's happy.
Yeah.
I always think of it as
counterpoint. Camp is fucking great.
Yes.
Camp is great. I always think of it as like a Kurt Cobain thing. Like it's just not cool to admit that you enjoy anything. Like that's kind of that feels very like distilling. Aaron just left.
Aaron. So hard that he left.
Well, I mean, like one of my favorite action films is The Rocketeer. You're not going to see that movie made today because there's no hardcore doesn't have
counterpoint.
They did The Rocketeer did get made in 2011.
Oh God, yeah.
It did again?
No. Do you know who directed The Rocketeer?
The 2000? No.
Oh yeah, the guy who did Captain America.
Captain America: The First Avenger is a stealth remake of The Rocketeer in terms of
100%.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
No, like that's literally what happened. Yes, we saw that movie together, and at the end of it, I was like, did that movie just like do everything that the Rocketeer was trying to do, but more successfully? And you were like, yeah. And then the credits were rolling, and we were like, oh, it was directed by the same man as the Rocketeer.
Wow.
The climax of both movies takes place on an exploding air vehicle. Like,
Yes.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, if you learned history, going off the back of what we talked about last podcast, if you learned history through film, you would think that there were way more Zeppelins than there actually were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I am so upset to this day that we as a people just decided, oh, okay, that was a tragedy, so we're never going to ever try to build or improve on this technology ever again.
Yeah.
No, you fix the technology, you make it safe, and you make it work. There's
right, but then we invented airplanes. Like, I'm trying not to just steal jokes from that Archer episode where they went on the Zeppelin. And Archer's like, all right, there's a murderer on this thing. We've only got a couple of hours before we get to London. Actually, we have 3 days. 3 days? What?
It's a giant balloon with propellers on it, guys.
Hello, Zeppelins? This is airplanes. We won.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting how Zeppelins survive in fiction, though. I mean, I'm obviously thinking of, like, Final Fantasy and like the Studio Ghibli stuff where it's just like
Batman.
It's aesthetic.
Right.
It's aesthetic. Like they look fucking cool. Yeah. Everybody's like, the's a romance to Zeppelins, so everybody's on
like
board.
On fire and
yes.
No, my favorite thing
what is life if not? What makes life sweeter if not, the subtle hand of death.
Right.
Always just out of frame.
The looming inevitability.
Batman the Animated Series had police Zeppelins, and it's one of my favorite things.
That's true.
They fought crime from Zeppelins.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that you can have orbital surveillance. Actually, no, I take that back. That sounds bad.
That sounds sinister.
Don't even say that out loud. We're going to have fucking flaming Zeppelins crashing in every major city.
Okay, oh, God.
What if the police could see you all the time from the air, and also sometimes those vehicles caught on fucking fire?
Oh, my God. Okay, so we have to transition into other things. Let's use that. Thank you for that, Sarah.
No, I want to talk more about Newsies.
So, okay.
This episode is just about Newsies.
We have 45 minutes of Newsies. You can make that work. But no, so
we're going to carry the banner through it all, Joe.
You guys seen, we can use it as a through line. You guys obviously, you've seen this stuff from like yesterday and the day before where in Portland, they're literally just like taking people off the streets and shoving them in unmarked vans or rental vans. Yeah. Right?
This is the worst fucking transition ever.
I'm going to put it at the beginning anyway. It doesn't matter.
You're going to put this heavy stuff at the beginning and then send me
I don't know.
Newsies like assholes?
I have to listen to I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the video that I post and the podcast are drastically different.
Yeah.
Like, much, much different. But yeah, so I mean, just talking about like horrible surveillance and things like that could happen in a dystopian society. I mean, the first podcast we did, I was talking about how I was reading Brave New World. And so now, of course, I'm reading like 1984 and all this stuff. And it doesn't even feel like fiction anymore. Like we literally have nondescript federal agents shoving people in vans. So like, I don't know where we go from there. And then the thing that we actually have in the show notes that we were originally going to talk about, it happened like a week ago, but it feels like 3 months ago, was I think we alluded to this, where we were talking, before the podcast started, before you got here, Aaron, we were talking about these giant, like, gated communities in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
Where, what is, the McCloskeys, is that what their names were? Oh, there's a person.
Hello!
Cat!
Hi. Oh, it's a kid. It's Chris's girlfriend. Let's see her. Oh,
She's got big.
Baby.
enormous.
She looks like a bat. I don't think you can actually see her on camera.
That's how
We can
Pablo
see
is.
her.
That's how Pablo is. That's yeah. Oh my God, she's adorable.
Cute.
She's had enough.
Oh, there she goes.
She's not in cuddle mode.
But yeah, I mean, we're the whole dystopian bingo cards are rapidly filling up. I mean, you've got the the popular term is pink Polo Rambo.
There's very
and his
there are
wife.
other ones. There's some great ones. I can't remember all of them, but
Yeah.
essentially what happened, if you're not from St. Louis and you're listening to this by some miracle of the internet, you've seen this on CNN, I'm sure. There's Black Lives Matter protest was going to they were marching to the residence of the mayor of the city of St. Louis. While doing so, they went through this gated community, and these like crazy rich people who are what are they like?
Lawyers.
They're lawyers who do like.
Well, he's a personal injury attorney.
Right. I thought she was an attorney too.
She is.
Yeah.
They run this. They run a practice together.
Right. And she's on like the ethics board of the Missouri Bar Association.
She's on the ethics review committee, so her committee would be the ones reviewing her law license.
Yeah. And so as the protesters are marching peacefully towards, and they like told the St. Louis police they were going to do, like, this is all totally peaceful. Mm-hmm. These two crazy rich people are out on their front lawn. The guy has like an AR-15 and the woman has like some shitty knockoff of the James Bond gun.
And she's holding it poorly.
Can I, real quick, okay, this is how I know that this dude is a fucking nerd, all right? So the two weapons on display are an AR-15A1, which is an AR-15 that is both more expensive and has less features than most AR-15s on the market, and you only buy because it looks like the guns in the Vietnam movies. Oh, yeah. She is wielding a Walther PPK, a really substandard handgun that you only buy because that's James Bond's handgun.
Yeah.
And they're both barefoot, meaning that he keeps his "my dick feels small, so I need movie guns by closer to the door than his shoes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And the thing that was super sketchy, I mean, like, beyond
it's even better, though, I have to throw in, the reason that they claimed that they were on their property is because the people, even by this, so we call it a gated community. This is a walled compound in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
With literal giant concrete walls and ornate wrought iron fences that is the length of, like, what, 5 city blocks.
Yeah, it's like
the heart of the city.
It's like if you've been to St. Louis, if you imagine where the Loop is, it's like south of the Loop. It's like runs for 4 blocks parallel to Del Mar.
Now, basically, the reason they claimed that they owned the property with the people that were on the sidewalk and in the street is because there's a green midway in the middle of the street that those two lawyers had been in an ongoing fight with the neighborhood because they annexed it. They literally claimed that they claimed it and defended it and improved it, and therefore they own it. And they were trying to claim that they own the entire entryway and have been in an ongoing legal dispute with the other rich assholes that live around them.
God.
Yeah. Apparently, I forget who. There was somebody who lives in the property next to them who had like a beehive. No, dude, it's so much worse. So it's 1 block over. It's the synagogue. Oh yeah,
it's the synagogue that's right behind them. They set up beehives, and they were gonna raise honey, and it was for the kids and the.
Yeah, there was a local newspaper interview with the rabbi who was like, "Well, I guess we're not doing this program anymore."
Oh yeah, he went out in the middle of the night and he smashed them up because he didn't want bees close to his house.
Yeah.
Be right back.
he didn't want bees, which is like, as someone who does a lot of gardening, the only reason you don't want bees is because you're a fucking dipshit who like has no plants.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the size of their yard, it's just it's totally insane and absurd. But
I also loved how apparently he sued his dad at some point. Like they've sued literally everyone they've ever known.
Dude, I mean, like the thing that's very interesting about like these political, I don't know, elements that stand out to us in the news is it's like it's very often just a person who would be like a total piece of shit no matter what their political viewpoint.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's like, okay, now you're just like you're really displaying your political viewpoints, but mostly your personality. That's mostly what we're responding to.
Yes.
That's mostly why everyone hates you. So then you have like the Trump thing where he's like, oh, these people are, I don't know, exercising their constitutional rights, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's not a lot to say about it other than I just feel like acknowledging it as part of like our local context for talking about musicals. I feel like that creates a richer fabric for just
No. Boo.
I also enjoy Chris displaying his simultaneous knowledge of like guns and musicals. I love that. Because
Look, my brain
Chris contains multitudes.
it does.
my brain is full of all of the knowledge that will never be useful at any point ever in my life.
Oh, bro, same. Like, my brain is wild. I know a lot of stuff. Like, I could have become a doctor, but I didn't. I just know a bunch of random shit about musicals and the Monkees and Korean pop music.
Like my redneck upbringing really just collides with my entire personality. So like, yeah, I will sit here all day and talk about and argue with Sarah that actually like Rodgers and Hammerstein are like, come on, like it's fun. It's well worth it. I can go on that whole argument, but at the same time, yeah, I have a weird encyclopedic knowledge of firearms, their operation, and their various quirks. Which literally the only time it ever came in handy was when I had a family member who died, who was literally insane and died with a carload of loaded gun, 11 loaded firearms.
Oh my god.
Yep.
I was the only person on hand, including the owner of the impound lot, that knew how to unload them.
Well, and
Only time it's ever come in handy.
And Chris, that is definitely like our I don't know what to call it, like group of people around where we grew up. When my grandpa died, it was the same thing. Like my uncles, we went over to his house and it's just like, oh look, 30 rifles for no reason. For someone who doesn't hunt. Like what
Were
is
they in his car and loaded?
No, he had a gun cabinet at least. But
Yeah.
still, like
Oh, let me tell you, one of the greatest bizarre moments of my life is the very last. I'm unloading these guns at like 5 o'clock in the morning in the parking lot of a shitty motel in nowhere, East Texas, Bayou country, right? I'm doing it early because I'm like, I don't know what the laws are. I don't have a permit in this state. I have no idea if I should be doing this or not. I have kids in the hotel room. So I'm doing it in the parking lot in the wee hours of the morning. Like, okay, let's just get this done. I'm walking back into the room. The last one I'm putting together was a 38 automatic, right? And I'd completely taken it apart because there was a round stuck in there.
oh great.
But it was fine. It's an automatic handgun. You take it apart, pull it out, no big deal. So I'm walking back in, and housekeeping comes around the corner. Now, it's pertinent to this story, again, I'm in Texas. As I'm putting a handgun together, like a bad Tarantino ripoff, right? And so she literally looks at, this is actually more like a Guy Ritchie moment almost. She's like, I'm looking at her, she looks at me, I'm like, oh fuck, click, 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 click. Morning, sir, do you need towels? No, I'm good, click, click, click. Okay, let me know if you need anything, click, will do.
Jesus Christ.
So do we want to get into my weird knowledge of urban planning now?
This is the thing. If you get Chris and I together on a non-structured conversational podcast, any kind of thing like that, like you're just gonna go on tangents.
It works because I will say what I appreciate is you guys have like sustained tangents.
Yeah.
Not like jump, so I could still call it a topic. We'll go.
Fair enough.
But since we're getting into the like over an hour territory, so let's.
What, I should talk about Robert Moses for an hour?
The last thing we have on here is just talking about like things that media, whatever we may have consumed, that's like something that we wouldn't normally watch or play, but we're doing it because like nothing else is being made, and we have all this extra time on our hands relatively, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I just completed watching or binging Hannibal the series on Netflix, or another way to describe it, Will Graham's terrible and horrible, very no good, very bad day. The series. It's so good.
I've heard it's good, but I'm really squeamish, so I haven't watched it.
Don't watch it. Don't watch it if you're squeamish.
Yeah.
No.
Sarah, for you, it's going to be difficult because it's gory, but also explicitly gay.
Yeah.
I know, that's the thing. I'm like, I know it gets gay, so I want to watch it, but I don't want to watch the bodies like being flayed.
But Mads Mikkelsen, I love him so much.
Oh, I adore Mads Mikkelsen. Yeah.
I mean, isn't it like Jeffrey Dahmer gay though? Like we're talking about, it's not so much about him.
No.
I haven't seen it.
No. It's just gay.
It's just
my understanding of it is that Brian Fuller spent like 4 years being like, oh, it's a story about a really intense friendship between two men, and then as soon as they got the cancellation order, he was like, gay, it's gay, they're gay.
Yeah.
And I can only respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I've been watching is I watched I'm on quarantine. That's probably pertinent to this, saying how quickly I watched all of it, because I did watch all of Warrior Nun. My apologies to anyone else, because apparently all programming decisions are now made by my id. Because Warrior Nun might have only been made for me. I can't tell you if it's good or not. It is a church conspiracy with a bunch of ninja nuns who, like every archetype that you could want out of a CW teen show is in this, but the production values are higher, the budget is higher, and it's shot in Spain. It's actually set in Spain.
This is like if your subconscious produced a television show. Yeah.
Yes, because you basically
I think you made this happen with your mind. The secret works.
You have two main characters. One, a paralyzed dead girl who gets brought back to life and now has superpowers. And so she's like sarcastic and snarky, and like her refusal to the call to adventure is like the entire first season of her just going, I've never gotten laid. I've never been kissed. I've eaten nothing but orphanage porridge since I was 5. Jesus Christ, I don't want to save the world. I want to fuck and drink.
Chris, I want to cut that out and put it in your intro after you say my name is Chris.
Perfect.
Incredible.
So you have that classic, chosen one, I don't want to be chosen kind of character, perfect in a CW show. Then you have the other archetype that I love with all my heart, which is the hard-bitten murderer, played by her character's name is Shotgun Mary.
I love her. That's my wife.
Yeah, no, she is amazing. She's one of the warriors.
I know nothing about her, but we're married.
So basically, it's like she just really likes hunting demons, but she refuses to take the vows because she just really loves like drinking and fucking and just fighting.
Sure.
So, and she's like the veteran of the group, but like there's this whole argument with one of the other girls that's like, I can kick your ass any day. You always skip hand-to-hand combat. She's like, bitch, I have 2 shotguns. I do not need hand-to-hand.
Yeah.
And they're literal ninjas. Like their habits like come up over their foreheads, and they have throwing knives and crossbows and backflips, and it's all about like church conspiracies, and like the bad guy is a cardinal, and it's like Sarah, it's so CW. There's a rave in the first episode.
Fuck! Oh, fuck! It's a CW pilot.
Yes. Sarah and I used to have a game called CW Pilot, where you just come up with any idea and you turn it into a CW series.
Yeah.
One of the niche there must be a teenage rave in the first episode.
Yes, every CW pilot is exactly the same. It begins with a new person coming to town, which like that's a classic pilot trope. Like that's
coming back from the dead. Yes.
Yeah, or like coming back to town. Just like a new person arrives. The like 2/3 mark is a raucous teen party. And what were the other things? There's a bunch of other qualities of a CW pilot, but like
there has to be like the gay friend, which there is. There has to be sexual tension with the gay friend, which there is. There has to be like a male like love interest who they take different forms. One of the things I love about Warrior Nun is that it takes that like obligatory male love interest character, doesn't really introduce. I think he doesn't even come into the second episode, and they just let him be like a doofus. Like, he's literally
is he a himbo?
He's just a hot boy. Yeah, but she's just like, oh,
I love a himbo.
I'm putting him in danger being here, but his arms. Oh my God, his arms. Like the camera is just lingering on this dude explaining all of his problems in life as he's, couch surfing around Europe.
Is it as over the top as that one video of what's his name? Superman movies.
Dean Cain.
Oh no. The movie was
Christopher Reeves?
No, recent.
Brandon Ruth.
Henry Cavill.
Or
Cavill,
Henry Cavill.
The movie with the Cavill building a PC.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen it? I mean, it's
pretty much
just
pretty amazing. Sarah, if you haven't seen that,
I have not seen this. I can't believe I haven't seen this.
Henry Cavill made a thirst video where he's just building a gaming PC.
Like, the best part about it is
I love Henry Cavill so fucking much.
He does something that like I've built PCs. I've never even thought about like in movies when there's someone who's like a jeweler and he has like the magnifying glass with the light. He has one of those while he's building a PC. He's always like soldering it himself. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
I love Henry Cavill.
He's great.
The other thing I know that a couple of you watched anyway was Aaron. What's
the old guard? The old guard?
The old guard.
Yes. The old guard.
Oh, I've heard that's good. I haven't gotten to watch it yet.
Let me give you the description. It's basically it's based on a graphic novel, but what it really is it's a remake of Highlander with Charlize Theron playing the Ramirez character, a black Marine playing McLeod's character. It's basically it's Call of Duty, but the Immortals are all LGBTQ badasses.
Hell yeah.
Okay, but also, Aaron, you're bearing the big lead with it, which is that it's the opposite of Highlander, where all of the Immortals are best goddamn friends and have been forever, and are just like super, and it's so nice.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
I also love this
blood-soaked, and it's savage, but they love each other.
I also love this idea that seems to be implied that if you're immortal and you live long enough, you just like become gay by default.
Yeah.
I'm an evolved being. This is what happens.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I won't spoil the dialogue, but there is one magnificent scene where one character professes his love to another character, and it's so well done.
Okay.
It's,
yeah. You guys have
I have one bone to pick with it, and it's so specific and it's so weird. But it's a major character point for Andy, Charlize Theron's character, that she's super depressed by the state of the world, and like she watches the news and she's like, nothing we do matters. This is all bullshit, blah, 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 blah. And like it rang a little hollow for me because she was a crusader.
Yeah.
She has lived through the Crusades, the Black Death, Spanish Inquisition. I kind of feel like with that kind of perspective, you'd be like, she's not so bad right now.
Yeah.
Like, she's been a lot worse, honestly.
We have air conditioning. Let's put this in perspective.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, it's my only complaint, and this is a tiny little thing, is it's a little bit paint by numbers-ish in terms of you can pretty much predict every major dramatic beat. When a character says, you know, hey, this one immortal has disappeared. It's like, oh, so by the time the end credits are rolling, this person's going to reveal themselves again. Yep, there it is.
I don't know how much
honestly,
room there is.
I don't mind that. Like, I feel like a lot of the structural and plot problems that film and television shows have had over the past like 10 or 15 years have been people like trying to surprise the audience, and like, you know what? It's fine if I guess. It's good if I guess, honestly. That means you set it up right.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I guess, that's like not a question of whether it's shocking or not. I'm just good at guessing. I've watched a lot of shit.
Right.
Like,
right. As have we all, especially since we're talking about like the golden age of television and stuff.
Yeah,
like, we're a group of people who've seen way more TV than past generations.
I mean, like, listen, I grew up both like in the middle of nowhere and on a very busy street. I just spent my childhood like reading books and watching television. Like, I didn't do shit else. Like, I've just seen a lot of things.
Yeah.
I know where it's going, probably.
Yeah, for me, if you want to innovate with character.
Yes.
And like, don't break the structure unless you have a really goddamn good reason to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
like,
to me, there's like this whole series of terrible action shows that were on like when millennials were kids and teenagers. Like, I don't know why I just thought of this, but like Xena is kind of what I think of.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you have like, it should be so terrible, but the reason that I like it is because of you have like 3 characters that you develop really well. Like, that's the whole show. It's just like Xena and Gabrielle, and occasionally like randomly Bruce Campbell
or Joxer.
Yeah, sure.
Or Joxer, the guy who plays Joxer is in there.
The only thing
Ted
Raimi.
Ted Raimi. I know too much about the series.
The only thing I love more than Xena is the remake, The Witcher.
It's true.
Yeah.
I still haven't watched any of The Witcher. I need to get into that.
We as soon as we're off quarantine, we're just gonna like plow through all of The Witcher, because I'm telling you, it's so clear that Netflix was like, here's $100 million, go make us a new Game of Thrones, and they came back and said, oops, we made Xena.
Yeah.
I love that.
Don't let anyone convince you that you need to know anything about the game. But I predict that you'll see.
Chris described the game to me once. I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
I don't even like the games.
You might end up going back and like actually reading the books, but they're translated from Polish. Like, I tried to read some of them, and there are a great many. They're okay, but like, if you ever read the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, if you ever read those books,
no.
I didn't read them. No.
So they're translated from Swedish,
I think.
Yeah. And so like, you can tell when you're reading it that it's kind of not.
Yeah, that's always an issue with translated works. There's sometimes they're stilted in a way where I'm like, is this the prose or is it the translation? It's hard to tell.
It's like, have any of you ever played the game Life is Strange?
Yeah.
It's like a perfect example of Yes, that's what teenagers sound like. If you translate the original game developer's language into English.
Right.
So
if you want the greatest,
it's a fun game. It's a fun game, but there are moments where it borders on, hello there, fellow kids. We're going to go to the party tonight.
look, the best example of, oh, sure, that's how teenage boys sound is still The Outsiders. But, like, that's a whole other conversation about a book about 17-year-old boys written by a 16-year-old girl.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I used to defend The Outsiders, but then it turned out that Essie Hinton is like really homophobic. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah.
Right, but she inspired the gayest movie ever made.
We just watched Newsies, Chris. I mean, come on.
I'm sorry. How many slow motion shirtless fight scenes in the rain are in Newsies?
I mean, yeah, but The Outsiders contains way less dancing.
That's true.
Arguably.
No one dances at all in The Outsiders, as far as I remember.
Those fight scenes.
Okay, so who's the guy?
Newsies contains fight dancing.
That is true.
So what about you, Sarah? What have you watched or consumed anything that you wouldn't normally because of?
I don't know that I have necessarily. I was only in quarantine for about a month, and then I started working at the grocery store. So I have way less time at home than the average person probably. God, what did I watch in the before times? I don't know. I was like real depressed during the first few weeks. I spent like 2 weeks being like, this is great. I'm gonna like clean out some closets. I'm gonna make meatballs from scratch. And like I did that for like 2 weeks, and then it's like, nope, time to stare at a fucking wall.
Well, I mean, this was a much more intense version of what a lot of people did after September 11th, which is just I'm just going to order Domino's and stare at CNN for hours.
Yeah.
Only this time it was home cooking shows on Netflix.
Well, that's the problem. Is you do like initially, I was the same way, Sarah. Initially, I was like, I'm gonna be super productive, and then after I made banana bread for like the 70th time, I'm just gonna be like a couch potato. But you know what? I started doing that's actually super. Speaking of things that I wouldn't normally do, is I've just started like renovating my house.
Yeah.
But with no money or skill. So it's gonna look like it. But there's this game that's on Steam called House Flipper, and it's exactly what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
You just go. It's like a weird immersive sim where you just go in and you like buy shitty houses, and you like throw trash away and paint the house and everything. It's really it's ridiculous. And watch APP. So I'm just caught in this horrible feedback loop where I'm like slowly destroying the property value of my own house and wasting my own time. That's what I'm doing.
I started playing BattleTech again. That's a great way to blow hours of your life.
Yeah. You need something that like is either very like micromanagey or like some giant open world thing where you can just like collect all the, I don't know, like dead like mouse skulls that are in a game or something. It's like
there's some new expansions for Warhammer 2 Total War if you really want to get
I might
there was one time at the like 2 months, a month and a half ago that I'm like, I almost got a Switch. I almost got I'm like because of course everybody is playing that damn game. Animal Crossing, but no, for that very reason of just collecting everything.
And I think Animal Crossing is even starting to wane for the same reason Sarah's talking about, is like you get really into it and you're like, oh, this gives me some semblance of normalcy, but then after a while you're like, no, this is tedious just like everything else. And now it's back to doing nothing again. I mean, I think it's gonna be interesting on the other side of this, like how long it takes everyone to gradually try to reapproach what normal used to be. So I don't know how that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for those of us that, well, you guys know me.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, There's nothing.
Your strengths. Is that what you're saying, Chris? I kind of feel that.
Look,
way.
I'm as depressed as everyone else because, like, you know, I would occasionally go out and do the things.
Yeah.
But, okay, full disclosure. So I've been essential through the entire thing. I've been at work this entire time trying to keep my university running. And but now I actually have COVID. So now I am stuck at home.
Yeah.
Cannot leave under penalty of law. And now I'm like, shit.
Yep.
So, you know, I slept from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. today. And I'm just living that lifestyle now.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it's gonna. I don't see a lot of us getting back to anything resembling normal anytime soon. I mean, like for example,
yeah.
Thing that's been announced movie-wise that I'm like, yeah, I want to risk my health for that.
No.
When theaters reopen.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a while before I go back to a movie theater.
Oh, for sure. Well, that's the thing that's infuriating to me is like all of these commercials by I can't even think of like an individual example, but where they're like, oh, things are opening up, businesses, you know, everything's going back to normal, we can tell, and you look out the window and you're like, fucking no, it's not. You guys just want to keep making money, which is fine. But like my thing is, I would rather like lose my job and whatever than have like 100,000 fucking people a day getting COVID, which is what's happening now.
Yeah.
So
That's going to be really interesting if there was, you know, Hollywood is really counting on Christopher Nolan to save Hollywood and the theater industry the minute they can reopen. Here's the thing. There's never been a filmmaker less well-suited to this situation because Chris Nolan are the kind of movies that you see them in IMAX and you go, oh my fucking God. And then you watch them at home and go, oh wait, this sucks.
Yeah.
It's
but I look forward to eventually seeing Mulan when it comes to Disney Plus. It's but I mean, I don't have my calendar set for, you know,
I've heard
the Nolan thing or. Yeah.
Speaking of things that have come to Disney Plus, I feel like maybe next podcast we should talk about Hamilton. Have you guys seen it?
Of course.
I haven't actually watched it. No, I haven't sat down to watch it yet. I just watched Newsies this morning because my attention span is so bad that I had to like really force myself to sit down and watch a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Go ahead.
Roll for the group. Is the pacing really slow in Newsies, or am I just like out of my mind?
It's an MGM movie.
It felt excruciatingly slow. Like I had a good time, but every time I looked at the remainder time, I was like, that seems like a lot.
Oh, I know.
I think that movie's only like 118 minutes long.
No, it's 2 hours.
Yeah,
it's a full 2 hours.
Yeah, and you're watching, and it's like an hour in, and Christian Bale has like just met the protagonist's family or whatever, and you're like,
then that's the end of the first act. Don't be disingenuous.
The end of the first act is halfway through the movie. That's kind of my point.
Well, it's a musical. You have to introduce everybody. You have to have your intro number. The first act of musicals is just long. That's just the way musicals work.
No.
You asked about Hamilton. I just FYI, I have been forbade to watch Hamilton until I'm in Chicago.
We'll put that on the back burner. The reason that I bring that up is because you're talking about things you can watch on Disney Plus. So you can watch Hamilton on Disney Plus. So maybe like in a couple of months we can all talk about it. Because the thing that's interesting about Hamilton is just like we're talking about how some media looks retrospectively. And like just the way that Lin-Manuel Miranda, like the way that Hamilton has kind of aged even. When did it come out? Like 5 years ago? 6 years
2015,
ago?
I think?
2015.
So 5? Yeah.
So like
I want to say 2015.
So like when that came out, the big thing was like, oh, it's a musical featuring hip hop, and it's got like an all, people of color in the cast, and like it's a big thing. And now it's kind of more like, why are we celebrating founding fathers and rewriting history and yada yada yada? So that's like a whole future conversation.
Oh yeah. If you want a good laugh sometime this weekend, watch the drunk history episode of Hamilton. It's on.
Oh,
it's
that
on
is
Hulu.
a really good episode. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
Very, very good.
Oh.
Okay.
It has
Yeah,
this
no,
slight-
I still haven't watched it. Like my quarantine has made my already like unable to focus brain even worse. Like I tried to get into the Untamed. I could not do it because it required me to think. Like,
the drunk
Yeah,
history episode.
the Untamed is really not that deep, but it's just like very complicated. There's a
Well,
lot of characters.
There's a lot of that going on where people are rewatching stuff that they're familiar with, that they know what the ending is going to be, and there's some science behind that of like finding comfort in the familiar.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I mean, one of my go-tos just for like having noise in the background is PlutoTV.com has a stream dedicated exclusively to classic Doctor Who episodes.
Okay.
And I grew up on that with on PBS, and just having having no mystery, but oh look, it's Daleks.
Right.
You know what's really interesting is that everybody says they've been rewatching stuff, and I really haven't. And I keep trying to like look for new things, and I realize I have ADHD. I'm looking for my new like hyperfixation. I'm trying to like engineer a new hyperfixation to provide my brain with serotonin.
That makes perfect sense.
Like I can't sit down and watch like a movie or anything, but I'm just like cycling through YouTube videos and shit like that. Like,
see, I was just thinking about like you were talking.
Oh wait, I do have a YouTube thing. I've been watching. I watched her a while ago, but I got back on it. There's this girl whose name is Makara Tours. She does sewing tutorials. I think she's like a cosplayer. But she does like these insane videos that are like half vlog, half sewing tutorial. They're just like fucking demented. Like I think she might be legitimately an insane person. But like
I've seen some of those.
Like they'll all have titles like making a Mira from Aquaman costume featuring a duck funeral. And like that's not clickbait. There's a duck funeral in the video. Like it's just like these insane sewing videos where like she makes like full elaborate costumes out of like Walmart fabric and stuff from thrift stores and like random shit from around her house, and they look incredible. And then like all of this like weird background stuff is happening in her life, and like I don't follow her on Twitter, I don't follow her on Instagram. I want to know nothing about her because I'm like, listen, I can tell from your vibe that you probably have some shitty politics, and I just don't want to know about it. I just want to enjoy the deeply chaotic energy of these sewing tutorials.
Yeah. That's what we should all seek right now, is deeply chaotic energy. Just that is somehow divorced from reality and yet parallel to it. That's like what I'm looking for. That compartment. Yeah.
So, okay, if we're looking for something for next time that everyone can watch that's on Disney Plus, that Aaron isn't banned from watching, why don't we introduce them to Kenny Ortega's follow-up musical masterpiece?
Oh dear.
Are you ready? Are you
High
ready?
School Musical, same
Guys.
director as Newsies.
You guys, we have to take a break from musicals.
No! It's a perfect time to compare and contrast two eras in a filmmaker's oeuvre.
All right.
Let's
Okay.
apply auteur theory to Kenny Ortega.
I will.
He also
watch
directed
High School
the
Musical
opening
if you-
ceremonies of the Salt Lake City Olympic Games.
Indeed.
I
Get your
will
head in
watch
the
High
game,
School
you
Musical.
two.
I will watch High School Musical if we all also watch The Rocketeer.
I watch it
I'll
once a
fucking
year
watch The
anyway.
Rocketeer. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
So
fuck
are
with The
those
Rocketeer.
gonna be our 2 topics next time? Is high like I'm gonna have to edit
Yes.
that into something that makes fucking sense. Okay, that's fine.
Honestly, tonally, I think that works.
Look, like they're on a very similar wavelength. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Well, I mean, they're both sincere, happy.
Yep.
Okay. And then Aaron, here's what I think we should do. I think you and I need to think of horror movies for people who hate horror movies.
Oh,
That's gonna be tough.
Here's the thing though, you guys. Okay, here's the thing. Sarah, I am also squeamish, and I also don't enjoy horror movies where it's like someone's skin getting flayed or something.
Yeah.
But between Aaron and Tracy, they have found like a type of psychological horror
Okay.
that I could maybe like we'll do this and we'll come back to that later. We'll do like High School Musical, just so Aaron and I could see a light at the end of the tunnel. Is like
fair enough.
You all remember that trailer for The Nun?
Oh,
yeah.
Don't expose me like this. Come on.
No.
Sarah screamed so loud, the whole audience turned and looked at her to make sure she was okay.
My favorite thing about The Nun is that the
they kept putting the trailer for The Nun in front of comedy movies.
Yes.
The ghost from The Nun looks a lot like Tracy's ex-husband, and so like that is so delightful. So here's my where I think I'll probably end up going with this. There's a series of movies called, Aaron, is it The Conjuring, where it's like the weird Catholic-ish movies?
With like Patrick Wilson in them. I feel like
Those
I've heard of those
because they're based on a real life couple who, in terms of who in the greater
it's like the Exorcist
occult study practice have sort of like been outed as charlatans.
Yeah. But the movies themselves, they have enough plot, not too many jump scares. It's kind of more just about the building tension and the relief, as opposed to. I'm sure
I can find a list of this won't cause people to lose sleep over movies.
No, but
like I watched one earlier this week. It was House with starring the lead actor from the Greatest American Hero series.
On the other hand, Tracy made me watch 2001 Maniacs, which is the worst fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Not like so bad, this is bad, you should watch it. Like, this is so bad, it should be buried in the center of the earth and no one should ever see it ever again.
Put it in the same dump with those fucking ET games that they buried in the desert.
Exactly.
I had a copy of that game.
Of course you did.
Well, that game was so weird because it was actually like for collectors, it was worth a lot for a while. And then someone just like dug up, like just like was building a foundation for a house or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was. And they're just like, oh, here's 100,000 shitty ET games. I hope you didn't pay a lot for that.
Yeah.
Okay, here, hang on. So that's a wrap for this episode. I'm going to stop recording.
Right.
That's it for Season 4, Episode 5 of the Gateway Geeks podcast, Deeply Chaotic Energy. We are your hosts, Chris Knetzer, Sarah Jane Connor, Aaron Robb, and me, Joe Kohlburn. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time when we discuss The Rocketeer and High School Musical, plus probably more dystopian reality bullshit. See you then.